This was the first full week post-SummerSlam with Triple H as the head of creative in WWE, so this was going to be the first real test of what direction we can expect him to take things in, and he did not waste any time in leaving his mark. From rehiring Dakota Kai and promoting Io Shirai to the main roster, to setting up Tommaso Ciampa for a United States Championship match on Raw tomorrow night, to setting things up with Shayna Baszler to challenge for the SmackDown Women's Championship at Clash at the Castle, to bringing back Karrion Kross and Scarlett and inserting them right into the top program in the company with Roman Reigns and Drew McIntyre. Triple H is like, you want to tear down the black and gold? Fuck you, I'm turning everything black and gold. This man almost died last year. He is leaving nothing to chance. But it's not just the black and gold. You know, the reports are that behind the scenes, there is a feeling of optimism and a feeling of excitement. You know, some talent obviously are worried about what all of the changes that are going on could potentially mean for their push. If there was somebody who was actively being pushed on television at the time by Vince McMahon, you know, is Triple H going to view them as favorably as Vince McMahon did? And I think if you're somebody on that roster, that's a natural feeling to have. Look, if you're somebody being pushed or you're in a prime spot, you have a right to be nervous about what the new boss is going to do and if he might view you as favorably as your old boss. You look at who's being pushed hard right now: Bobby Lashley, Bianca Belair, Matt Riddle, Austin Theory. I don't think, any of those people have much to worry about. Lacey Evans might be a different story. She was a personal favorite of Vince McMahon. He was very hands-on with her. I'll bet he was. Fightful says they have no direction for Lacey Evans right now and that her return was considered internally to be chaotic and directionless. I could have told you that just by watching the show. And that's somebody Vince liked. If that's how he books someone that he likes, I wouldn't want to get on the man's bad side. But the atmosphere behind the scenes is said to be more relaxed and calmer, and words like wrestling and wrestler are not the dirty words that they were looked at as before. We even had Roman Reigns dropping an H-bomb on SmackDown on Friday night. He used the word hospital when talking about Paul Heyman taking that F5 from Brock Lesnar at SummerSlam. Maybe they'll be able to call them belts again and title shots instead of title opportunities. And fans instead of the universe. Wouldn't that be nice? Mike Johnson of PW Insider echoed those same reports, saying that one major change that has happened over the past couple of weeks in WWE is giving the talents more freedom on the microphone, allowing them to improvise a little bit more. When we talk about changes coming to WWE, when I'm talking about stuff like hospital and belt and words like that, obviously those are not, in the grand scheme of things, all that important. They have far bigger issues to address than what words are being used on TV. But we talk about them and we kind of joke about it. But when we talk about all of these changes that are coming or potentially coming to WWE, there are a lot of little things I would like to see change. And I have my own ideas for matches and gimmicks and things of that nature. I mentioned some of them last week. This may be the biggest and the most important change of all. If they start to allow the talent more latitude on promos and they don't force them to stick hard and fast to all the corporate buzzwords, if we start getting promos that sound more human-like, that's huge. Because how many times have we watched and listened to a promo on WWE TV, and I even talk about it sometimes, it doesn't sound like a human being would say this if they were actually talking or threatening somebody or having a conversation with somebody or doing an interview. So many of these promos, they don't sound realistic. That level of realism is something that has been missing from the product. If that begins to change, that's huge. Promos were such an important part of how some of the biggest stars got over years ago because they did not sound forced. They did not sound rehearsed. They had their bullet points. They knew what points they had to hit. We got a pay-per-view on Sunday. Okay, cool. And they went out there and they did it. And they sounded more natural. That is every bit as important as anything that they might do inside the ring. And it's the number one thing I was hoping to hear after Vince McMahon left. So that is a very encouraging sign moving forward. Raw on Monday night was the first real test. And if you want a sign of how much interest there was in that show, coming out of SummerSlam, they averaged 2.23 million viewers. That is the highest total viewership in more than 2 years for Monday Night Raw. Since the 316 show in 2020, that was the first Raw without fans at the start of the pandemic. And the best demo numbers since this year's post-WrestleMania episode of Raw. Now, it helped that USA Network let them have the first hour of the show commercial-free. You know, that's a nice gimmick for 1 week. They are not going to be able to do that every week. They're not going to have another commercial-free hour tomorrow night. And they should enjoy the bump now because we're only a month away from the start of the NFL season. So this is not going to last. I didn't love the show on Monday, but it was definitely an improvement from what we have been getting on most Monday nights. The first major injury that Triple H had to deal with was to one of the biggest stars in the company, in Becky Lynch, who suffered a separated shoulder early in her match with Bianca Belair last weekend at SummerSlam. She gutted it out, and she wrestled another 15 minutes, and the two of them had an excellent match. So credit to Becky. You know, that's a painful injury. I'm sure it didn't feel too good once all the adrenaline wore off backstage. There are different degrees of separation, but WWE only announced that she would be out for months. They did not put an exact number on. I don't think this is an injury where she's going to be gone for 6 months, but look, hopefully it's not a Kota Ibushi situation, where it is serious and she doesn't have surgery and she ends up being out for a long time. Hopefully she can be back before the end of the year. But lucky for Triple H, he got Bayley back on TV with Dakota Kai and Io Shirai to step in, which would, you would think, soften the blow of losing Becky Lynch. He has those three. He's got Bianca. He's got Rhea Ripley, Asuka, and Alexa Bliss. Those are now all the really big names in that women's division on the Monday Night Raw side. Plus, he always has the option to call up another person from NXT. And he may be getting 2 other names back soon. And I'll have more on that in a little bit.